Shalom. I'd like to give all praises, glory, and honors to YAHAWAH, YAHAWASHI. Double honors to the apostles and the elders at Great Millstone who rule well. Peace, salutations, and blessings to the elect across the four corners of the earth who firmly believe on YAHAWAH. And it's going to be the second installment, episode 2 of Esau Oppresses a Man, His House, and Heritage. In this edition, we're going to speak upon, I'm going to speak upon Saddam Hussein. In the previous one, I was speaking about Muammar Gaddafi, but in this particular installment, we're going to speak upon Saddam Hussein and the real reason why these Edomites, the so-called white man, the American government, by way of the Bush administration, invaded the land of Iraq. Because people's under the misconception that, Saddam Hussein possessed weapons of mass destruction and he's a threat to the American citizens. We have to go in there and take him out and do what we got to do, in the words of the Bush administration, But when you do the research, and you put the pieces of the puzzle together, this devil, it was just being a devil, man. We call the so-called white man a devil because it comes from the Latin diablo, which means deceiver. And he clearly deceived the American people on the real reason why he invaded the land of Iraq. It wasn't for weapons of mass destruction. So and another reason they invaded the land of Iraq was because it was profiting to the companies who build the bullets, the bombs, the tanks, and things of that nature, as well as the elites. The elites profited off of that situation, because they control the banks, But the first article I'm gonna get into is from the HuffingtonPost.com, and the title is "What is the real reason George Bush invaded Iraq?" And this furthermore proves, the scriptures upon the wickedness of the so-called white man. It says, to hear supporters of George Bush now, the only reason he invaded Iraq was to introduce democracy to that country. And the reasons we are still there are to combat the terrorists who entered Iraq after we invaded and to save face. This is, but in the weeks and months leading up to the invasion, it was quite a different story. Back then, the Bush administration's pitch to the American people was Saddam Hussein has chemical and biological weapons and even nuclear weapons that he plans to give to Osama bin Laden and Al Qaeda, who will then smuggle them into the United States and kill tens of thousands of people. Now, that was the white lie that the Bush administration told the American people. Here it is, this guy Saddam Hussein has chemical and biological weapons, when ultimately this devil's the one who possessed chemical and biological weapons. And it's a moment of time to where this devil is going to actually use those chemical and biological weapons on the American citizens. But here it is, this devil is telling, the American people that Saddam Hussein possesses all of these weapons, And just like I made mention, the point I made mention in the previous, installment, harping on Muammar Gaddafi, Malcolm X, even though he was a nigga, he made a good point. He said, if you're not careful, the media will have you hating the ones who are being oppressed and loving the ones who's doing the oppressing. And that's what's happening here in this case after this statement was made by the Bush administration. I'm going to read it again. Saddam Hussein has chemical and biological weapons and even nuclear weapons that he plans to give to Osama bin Laden and Al Qaeda, who will then smuggle them into the United States and kill tens of thousands of people. So here it is with this white lie. They're causing you to love the ones who's doing the oppressing. The so-called white man is making it look like he's the hero, like he's saving the American people from destruction. Well, ultimately, he's doing it for his own personal agenda. He wants to push democracy upon that country, and he wants the resources that that land provides, as well as fattening his pockets with, money as the end result. It says, even if you knew nothing about Iraqi history and politics, this argument should have appeared dubious on the face of it. and the terrorist attacks that have taken place inside the United States, including the World Trade Center bombing of 1993, Timothy McVeigh's bombing of the Murrah Federal Building in Oklahoma City, and the 9/11 attacks, none of the perpetrators needed to smuggle weapons into the country. Whatever they needed, they found right here inside the United States. Why? Because the U.S. government supplies the terrorists with the materials they need to cause the terroristic act. It's called problem reaction solution, or the ABKEA. You know, here it is. They set these terrorists up, but they making it look like these terrorists did it upon their own will, and have their own agenda, because it's all about control with this devil. He set up situations to furthermore control a particular country's resources and control the minds of the people. You know, it says, I believe that there were three important informal groups within the Bush administration that were anxious to invade Iraq. Although certain individuals belonged to more than one group, these groups were war profiteers, neoconservative ideologues, and supporters of Israel. Now, war profiteers. It is a simple fact of life that when there is war, there is money to be made. If the whole world was at peace, weapons makers would go out of business. But if weapons are being used in an actual war, bullets, missiles, and bombs have to be built and sold to replace the ones that have been shot or detonated. Parts for tanks, fighter jets, and all sorts of other equipment also have to be replaced regularly. So there is a certain class of individuals and companies that, for reasons having nothing to do with politics, roots for wars to start and then to go on as long as possible. Like there's that documentary out there that the apostles brought out. All wars are bankers' wars. Because ultimately, the who controls the banks? The elites. The elites control it. But it says there are also huge profits to be made in the reconstruction industry, which moves in to rebuild what war has destroyed. War is great for business. If you happen to be Halliburton or Bechtel or Boeing or the Parsons Corporation, because these are companies that profit off of war, as well as the elites, profiting off of the war, So it's a win-win for the elites and the reason in going to war. They're able to possess whatever resources that they desire to receive from a particular country or nation. And they furthermore fatten their pockets in the process, And to furthermore, edify that point, as far as, the corporations getting rich off of war as well as the banks. I have this article here. Called Direct Action to Stop the War from BayerReedDirectAction.wordpress.com. It says March 19th actions. And here's a quick excerpt from the article, pretty much speaking upon the Iraqi invasion. It says the Iraq war is the second longest in U.S. history. And that's another reason why they don't like to pull their troops out of a particular place, because the longer they're in there, the more bombs are being detonated, the more bullets are being used, and missiles if need be, and the longer that the American troops are in that particular land, the more money the corporations are going to make, and the more money the elites are going to make off of it. It says it has killed more than 1 million Iraqis and 4,000 U.S. troops. Hundreds of thousands more have been wounded. It says nearly 5 million Iraqis have been made refugees by the war and occupation over a Over a quarter of Iraq's population has been killed, wounded, or displaced. While Bush and the other hypocritical politicians talk endlessly about supporting the troops, tens of thousands of returning soldiers have life-altering wounds, both physical and psychological, and totally inadequate medical care and benefits. Many are already homeless. And this is why we tell our own people not to join the army. Hell, they even told you that in Boys in the Hood on how a black man has no place in the white man's army. Because ultimately, they don't care about you. You're not going to receive the benefits that you're promised. And furthermore, you're involving yourself in a situation that's putting more money in the oppressor's pocket, the so-called white man's pocket. You know, here it is. You go to war. Your life is on the line. You know, you hear all of these loud sounds. You have sleepless nights. You put in crazy living conditions. You out there in the woods, in the desert and things of that nature. You know, from the duration of time that you're there, by the time you get back, you're going to suffer from physical and psychological issues. But even when you come back with those physical and psychological issues, they don't even the military doesn't even provide you with the correct medical care and benefits for you to treat your physical and psychological issues. You know, and then when you come back home, when you come back to the states, you're homeless. That's one of the things that YAHAWASHI hates, as written in the scriptures, in the Apocrypha. A man that goes to war and suffers poverty, roughly paraphrasing, So this devil got a lot to pay for, you know. It says the cost of war is now running at more than $400 million per day, nearly $5,000 per second. Military industrial corporations and the big banks are reaping huge profits. So that's the whole end result of war. You know, the military industrial corporations are going to receive are going to reap huge profits, as well as the big banks, because who controls the big banks? The elites. It says while millions of people go without health care, decent housing, and jobs, much of the country's infrastructure, bridges, roads, water systems, schools, etc., is falling apart. And that's how you know this is the second leg of Rome. Because what all of the money was put into the military, and the infrastructure started to break down, you know? And what the same thing is happening here in Babylon the Great, also known as America, the second leg of Rome, you know? It says that the same banks that are evicting millions of people from their homes are profiting from the war. You know, these devils are some real life bastards, man. You know, that's why the scriptures speak upon in Proverbs 29:2, when the wicked are in authority, the people mourn, but when the righteous are in authority, the people shall rejoice. You know, the elites are only worried about their own pockets, man. They worried about their own families. They don't even care about their own Edomites. They don't care about their own people. You know what I'm saying? They'll put out their own people, you know, whatever apartments that they may live in or whatever homes that they may live in. But as long as that they go to war and they generate an income to further fatten in their pockets, they cool. They can sleep at night. But they not looking out for the benefits of the American citizens, so-called American citizens. You know, it says the vast majority of people want the war ended and ended now. And while some of the presidential candidates talk about ending the war, none of the leading Democratic or Republican candidates have any intention of getting out of Iraq anytime soon. Why? Because being in Iraq is profitable. You know, whatever president, whether it be Democrat or Republican, they all taking orders from the elites, man. They're not coming out of there unless the elites say so. But why would you take a certain people out of a certain situation if you're profiting from it? Here it is. They had that campaign, bring our troops home, bring our troops home. You know what I'm saying? And then I think it was under Barack Obama, how he brought back home a certain amount of American troops. That was just to appease the feelings and emotions of the American people, as well as the families that had a family member in the army. But please believe that they was called right back to duty. you know, he's a real live devil, man. He's a real live devil. But jumping back to this article, it says the next point is neoconservatives. On January 27, 1998, 3.5 years before the 9/11 attacks, the Project for the New American Century published an open letter in the Washington Times urging President Clinton to invade Iraq and overthrow Saddam Hussein. Among the 18 signatories to this letter were 10 people who would later join the Bush administration. And these are their names, right? So 10 of the 18 people wanted Clinton to invade Iraq. Ultimately, we know it's the elites that want, the invasion upon Iraq, but to cover the elites, they got to put names out there, you know. It says in 1998, these neoconservatives wanted to overthrow Saddam Hussein because it was almost certain that he would acquire the capability to deliver weapons of mass destruction, thus putting at risk American troops, Israel, moderate Arab states, and a significant portion of the world's supply of oil. Another main reason why they invaded Iraq, for the resources of oil. It says, sure enough, 5 years later, when the neoconservatives got their invasion and Iraq was descending into chaos and looting, U.S. troops made a beeline to secure its oil facilities. Why? Because oil is a great resource that the world needs. So whoever controls the resources of oil can pretty much control the people round about that need that oil. It's the devil for you, man. And that's why he's in violation of so many scriptures. One of the primary ones, remove not the old landmark, man. It says, before Democrats start declaring that only Republicans would send American soldiers to war to protect oil fields, it is worth noting that it was a Democratic president, Jimmy Carter, who declared in 1979 any assault on the Gulf will be regarded as an assault on the vital interests of the United States. Of the United States. So what these people got a lot to pay for, man. These devils got a lot to pay for. And furthermore, harping on this point, I left to point out, as far as these military industrial corporations profiting off of war. They I believe it was one of these companies. It might have been Halliburton. I believe it was Halliburton. That military industrial corporation, they pretty much had a $680 million contract, I believe, for a 6-month period. So they generated $680 million to pretty much reconstruct Iraq, off of the damage that has been done. They had a $680 million contract to pretty much repair the damage that has been done in Iraq. So that's another benefit and profiting that war provides unto these companies out there. But jumping back, to furthermore hop on this point, it says, before Democrats start declaring that only Republicans would send American soldiers to war to protect oil fields, it is worth noting that it was a Democratic president, Jimmy Carter, who declared in 1979 any assault on the Gulf would be regarded as an assault on the vital interests of the United States. So that goes to show that whether you're Democrat or Republican, that they're all on one accord. They all in the same like mind, because they all taking orders from the elites. The third group that was involved in the invasion of Iraq during the Bush administration was supporters of Israel. It says Saddam Hussein was not involved in anti-American terrorism, but he was a supporter of anti-Israeli terrorists. He hated Jews and he wanted Israel destroyed. Even before the neoconservative letter to the Washington Times, David Wormser, currently Vice President Cheney Middle East advisor, co-authored a 1996 report, A Clean Break, a new strategy for securing the realm, that advised Israeli President Benjamin Netanyahu to overthrow Saddam Hussein and to attack Syrian military targets in Lebanon and possibly select targets in Syria as well. Saddam Hussein provided tens of millions of dollars to groups that committed terrorist acts in Israel, and Israel is safer with him out of power, particularly as the Israeli government and its army were able to sit back while the American troops and money did the job. Some members of the Bush administration, like Wormser, Perley, and Wolfowitz, at best miscalculated that what is good for Israel is always good for the United States. Why? Because Israel is an important ally and asset to the United States. So here it is. The United States was fighting Israel's battles. You know, Saddam Hussein had a strong dislike for Israel. He hated those so-called Jews, you know, and with them having a perspective of him possibly having weapons of mass destruction, he could have he was easily a threat unto the nation of Israel, the land. I'll say the land of Israel. You know, so to protect Israel, that was another reason why America had to invade Iraq and get Saddam Hussein out the way. So it was a multi-purpose for the American troops, these Edomites, to invade Saddam Hussein and the land of Iraq. You know, yeah, that's about it on that. I have one more article. It's from the www.theguardian.com, and the title is "Overthrowing Saddam Hussein was the right move for the U.S. and its allies." John Bolton. And this is his perspective. And he's an insider. He was a U.S. ambassador, to the countries, and it says opponents of the Iraq War continue to spread myths. The reality is the U.S. achieved many of its goals in the war. And what's one of the few goals of the war? Providing democracy, taking over the oil, and killing Saddam Hussein. They were successful in their agenda. But I'm gonna start at point two. It says wars to impose democracy invariably fail. This generalization, whether true or not, is fundamentally irrelevant to Iraq. While President George W. Bush and others sought to justify military action after Saddam's downfall as helping to spread democracy, such arguments played no measurable role in the decision to end Saddam's regime. Obviously, most administration officials expected the Ba'ath Party would be replaced by representative government, but that was not the motive, should not have been, and will not be in future interventions. It says Bush lied about Iraq's weapons of mass destruction. Ridiculous. Anyone who has ever served in the U.S. government knows how hard it is to keep anything a secret, including our most vital national security information. The idea that a conspiracy to lie about Saddam's weapons of mass destruction capabilities could to this day have kept its machination secret in whole or in part smacks of paranoia. So this guy is furthermore proven, that white lie on the invasion of Iraq, it was bullshit. It was bullshit. But what? The secret finally came out on what actually happened. What actually happened. Because why? We're in that time to where this devil's being revealed. Here it is. This devil exposes himself. What's the scripture say? I believe in Psalms the 64th chapter, how the tongue of the wicked shall fall upon himself. Here it is. The so-called white man is the wicked. So they tell on one another. That's why the scriptures also say, if Satan be divided against himself, how can his kingdom stand? Here it is. You got one group of people that want to hold on to a secret. You got the same people of the same group that want to expose that secret. But that's all orchestrated by YAHAWASHI. It says America and its allies, especially the UK, believe, for an example, that Iraq has stocks of chemical weapons, not because of espionage, but because of Saddam's own 1991 declarations concerning such weapons pursuant to the Security Council ceasefire resolution. Iraq claimed it had eliminated its weapons of mass destruction, but refused to provide UN weapons inspectors any information to corroborate those claims. Virtually every objective observer concluded that Iraq was lying about destroying its chemical weapons and therefore still had large and threatening capabilities. You can search the record in vain for major voices claiming, before before the 2003 war that Iraq didn't have chemical weapons. The fact is that Saddam Hussein, with or without actual WMD, was a strategic threat to peace and security in the Middle East and globally. So he was a threat. He was a threat, man, because he could have enforced, his democracy upon the Arab nations, the rest of the Arab nations, you know. And it says once free of UN economic sanctions and weapons inspectors, which 10 years ago he was very close to achieving, he would have immediately returned to ambitious weapons of mass destruction programs. As a defense, because all of these countries have weapons of mass destruction. They all hold nuclear capability, you know. But what America wanted to be that country, with that capability, so he can be a bully to the other nations. But what according to Bible prophecy, what let the weak say that I'm strong. So those countries who didn't have weapons of mass destruction, that didn't have that nuclear capability, they now have it. Because what ultimately America's destiny is to be destroyed off the face of the earth, man, and become a desert. But let's get right into the scriptures. This is Micah chapter 2. I'm going to start at verse 1. Woe to them that devise iniquity and work evil upon their beds. When the morning is light, they practice it because it is in the power of their hand. So the Lord is saying death and destruction to those who devise iniquity and work evil upon their beds. And what's that iniquity and that evil that they work upon their beds? Those problem, reaction, solution agendas, the order ab chaos. Here it is, the Bush administration devised a lie that Saddam Hussein possesses weapons of mass destruction and he's going to set up terrorists to invade America and to kill tens of thousands of people. So before he can actually do that, we have to take him out of power. That's the white lie that they told. But when ultimately they what? They wanted to put democracy in the land of Iraq. They wanted to take over their oil fields. And they also wanted to kill Saddam Hussein to protect Israel because Saddam Hussein had a deep hatred for the land of Israel. But what? They created a lie. They devised that iniquity so they can fulfill their agenda. But for you doing that, YAHAWASHI is saying death and destruction unto you. And this furthermore proves that this is the devil that this is the devil that the Bible speaks of, the so-called white man. Verse 2, it says, and they covet fields. What are some of those fields? The oil fields. The oil fields. Well, let me see if I can find that point on how they wanted to take over the oil. Right, this is the point right here. It says in 1998, these neoconservatives wanted to overthrow Saddam Hussein because it was almost certain that he would acquire the capability to deliver weapons of mass destruction, thus putting at risk American troops, Israel, moderate Arab states, and a significant portion of the world's supply of oil. Sure enough, 5 years later, when the neoconservatives got their invasion and Iraq was descending into chaos and looting, U.S. troops made a beeline to secure its oil facilities. Those are one of the things also fulfilling the scriptures that they covet. And it says, and take them by violence and houses and take them away. You know, and what's part of the violence that these devils, you know, afflicted upon the Iraqi people? This furthermore proves that the Iraq War is the second longest in U.S. history. It has killed more than 1 million Iraqis and 4,000 U.S. troops. So these Edomites were willing to sacrifice their own people, you know, to furthermore, you know, achieve their plans and agenda. You know, it says nearly 5 million Iraqis have been made refugees by the war and occupation. Over a quarter of Iraq's population has been killed, wounded, or displaced. You know, that's violence. That's violence, and that's another charge that these devils brought upon themselves, in which they will be judged for. Though they're heathens, you know, though they're heathens, and the Heavenly Father doesn't care for them. But what the Lord, you know, divided the lands and gave them their portion. You know, and here it is. This devil, the so-called white man, overstepped his boundary. You know, so it says, and they cover fields and take them by violence, and houses and take them away. So they oppress a man and his house, even a man and his heritage. And Saddam Hussein was heavily oppressed, man. And those people of Iraq were oppressed, you know. And they, even a man and his heritage, because I'm pretty sure they had their own laws and their own way of living. But what the American people set up, you know, their democracy over there. You know, that's oppression. American democracy is oppression, period. You know, because what? It's in contrary against the ways of YAHAWASHI. You know, verse 3. It says, therefore thus saith Yahweh, behold, against this family do I devise an evil, from which ye shall not remove your necks, neither shall ye go haughtily, for this time is evil. And that day shall one take up a parable against you, and lament with a doleful lamentation, and say, we be utterly spoiled. He hath changed the portion of my people. How hath he removed it from me? Turning away, he hath divided our fields. Therefore thou shalt have none that shall cast a cord by lot in the congregation of Yahweh. So great judgment is going to fall upon you Edomites, man, for all the wickedness, for all the rape, robbery, and murder that you've done around the world, not only on the nation of Israel, the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native American Indians, you know, but also around the world, man. You know, this next scripture I have here is the book of Habakkuk, chapter 2. I'm gonna start at verse 4. I'm gonna start at verse 4. It says, behold, his soul which is lifted up is not upright in him, but the just shall live by his faith. You know, the soul that is not lifted upright in him is talking about the so-called white man. You know, because he does everything contrary to that the scriptures say. You know, you could read Job, the 21st chapter, the 11th verse on down, and get a more clear understanding upon it. 5th verse, yet also because he transgresseth by wine. You know, that's his philosophies. You know, he's a proud man, neither keepeth at home. That's right, this devil doesn't know how to mind his business. This devil don't know how to mind his business. Here it is, there's a lot of problems going on in America. You know, there's a lot of homeless people out here. You know, there's genocide happening within America in itself. You know, but the so-called white man is not doing anything to stop nor prevent that. Here it is, he's going into other countries, he's going into other nations, further oppressing them and reaping their natural resources. Who else is the scripture talking about? The Africans aren't doing this. You know, the Arabs aren't doing this. The so-called Chinese and Japanese aren't doing this. It's the so-called white man that's doing this. That's how we know who these scriptures are talking about. It's talking about the so-called white man. And that's why the so-called white man is going to have to endure 1,000 years of captivity, you know, slavery, and being burnt off the face of the earth. His pigment is no longer going to be in existence. You know, it says, who enlargeth his desire as hell and is as death and cannot be satisfied. That's why he has a chip. That's why he wants to chip the people, because this devil cannot be satisfied. He's not satisfied with everybody's resources. He's not satisfied with everybody paying him taxes. He's not satisfied with putting chemtrails in the air, killing people, putting GMOs in the foods, killing people. He's not satisfied with that. He wants to control your mind. He wants to control your spirit. He wants to control, you know, your financial, all by way of a chip, a microchip, which is the mark of the beast that the Bible speaks of. You know, and even if the Lord allowed him to rule after he chipped people, he'll find another way to furthermore control the people, man. Excuse me. You know? So this devil can't be satisfied, but it says, but gathereth unto him all nations and heapeth unto him all people. Why? Because he likes to go into these other nations and set up American embassies, pushing forth his democracy upon them. Verse 6, shall not all these take up a parable against him, and taunting proverb against him, and say, woe to him that increaseth that which is not his? How long? That's right, because those oil fields aren't yours. But here it is, you took over these particular lands by force with the sword because it is your blessing, you know, and that's the only way for you to receive your blessing. For you to receive financial resources, you have to go to war. For you to receive financial resources and some money, you have to go to war. Because why? Ultimately, that's your blessing, you know. But what? Your blessing is also going to be your cursing. That's how YAHAWASHI got you in the trick bag. Your blessing is also your cursing, you know. It says, woe to him that increaseth that which is not his. You taking over these lands and their resources, it's not yours. But what? Death and destruction is going to fall upon you because you increased in it. And it says, and to him that ladeth himself with thick clay. That's that debt, man. Because America is what, at $20 million? Oh, I'm sorry, $20 trillion worth in debt, you know? And you accumulated that debt because you didn't want to use just measure. You didn't want to use just weight, as the scriptures say. You know, your Federal Reserve note is not backed by anything. That also increases more debt. This is a credit-based society. That also increases debt. You know? Verse 7, shall they not rise up suddenly, that shall bite thee, and await that shall vex thee, and thou shalt be for booties unto them? Because ultimately, you're going to turn into a spoil. You did all of this spoiling, you're going to turn into a spoil, Edom. Verse 8, because thou hast spoiled many nations, all the remnant of the people shall spoil thee, because of men's blood, and for the violence of the land, of the city, and of all that dwell therein. And that's why I said your blessing is actually going to be turned into your cursing, you know, because your blessing is the sword. So since you ruled by the sword, guess what? The sword is going to fall upon you. Verse 9, woe to him that coveteth an evil covetousness to his house, that he may set his nest on high, that he may be delivered from the power of evil. Because what? This devil's all about control. You know, in order for him to receive that control, what? He put afflictions on the people, he put bans on the people, and he take over a people as well as his nation and his land's resources, man. You know? Verse 10, thou hast consulted shame to thy house by cutting off many people, and hast sinned against thy soul, you know? So you brought shame upon yourself for killing a fourth of Iraqi's people. You brought shame upon yourself for taking over Libya. You brought shame upon yourself for putting the so-called Negroes in slavery, as well as the Latinos and Native American Indians. When you came over here by way of the conquistadors and breaking 750 peace treaties with the North American Indians, you know, more importantly known as the tribe of Gad. You brought shame upon yourself when you did that. You know, destroying the people that occupied this land with biological warfare. You know, so great judgment is going to fall upon you for that. You know, the so-called white man. This is 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 verse 4. Who opposeth, verse 3. Let no man deceive you by any means, for that day shall not come, except there come a falling away first, and that man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition. You know, so the end is not going to come until Israel fall as a nation. And we in a time now to where we fell. We don't know who we are. Also, that man of sin being revealed, the son of perdition, which is the so-called white man. You know, so before destruction comes, we're in a time now to where the so-called white man has to be revealed. And that's the point of this lesson. You know, this devil, the so-called white man being revealed. You know, all the things that the scriptures speak upon, you know, and the wickedness of what not to do, the so-called white man did it. And here we are bringing him up on his charges. You know, it says, Verse 4, who opposeth and exalteth himself above all that is called God, or that is worshipped, so that he as God sitteth in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. Remember ye not that when I was yet with you, I told you these things? And now ye know that withholdeth that he might be revealed in his time. And we in that time. We in exciting times. You know what I'm saying? We in the times now to where the prophets desired to see, and that's this devil being revealed, man. It says, verse 7, for the mystery of iniquity, well, further to back it up, we're in exciting times and desire to see this devil being revealed, but more so him being rooted out of power and Israel being set up, beginning with YAHAWASHI and his elect. Verse 7, it says, for the mystery of iniquity doth already work. Only he who will now letteth will let until he be taken out of the way. So the mystery of iniquity was already working during the time of the Roman Empire, during the time of the Apostle Paul. The mystery of iniquity was already at work, but nobody knew at that time who the wicked was. Who the wicked was. So, but we're in a time now to where that's being revealed. It says, only he who will now letteth will let until he be taken out of the way. Who's the he that's letting this devil do what he do as far as his wickedness? The Most High. Because what? It's for a certain purpose. Verse 8, and then shall that wicked be revealed, whom the Lord shall consume with the spirit of his mouth, and shall destroy with the brightness of his coming. So we're in a time now to where this devil's being destroyed with the spirit of his mouth. If you love YAHAWASHI and you want to see the coming salvation of the elect, you're going to destroy this wicked with the spirit of his mouth. You're going to put in that work to destroy the wicked with the spirit of the Lord's mouth. Because the end is not going to come unless the wicked gets destroyed with the spirit of the Lord's mouth. But in order for us to do that, we have to do work. We have to labor. We have to toil. We got to serve YAHAWASHI, because it's also a cry. The more you cry unto your power, the more you cry unto YAHAWASHI, the quicker he's going to save you. The quicker he's going to get us out of this predicament that we in. The scriptures say, give him no rest until he established Jerusalem, a praise in the earth. It says, verse 9, even him whose coming is after the working of Satan, with all power and signs and lying wonders, and with all deceivableness of unrighteousness in them that perish. Because what was part of that deception? This devil being deceived, the deceivable, was him saying that they're going into Iraq to take Saddam Hussein because he possesses weapons of mass destruction. And he have intentions on destroying American citizens. That was him. Shalakia. Satan. See, Satan. Working on a computer, boy. Satan don't like to be exposed. It says, and with all deceivableness of unrighteousness in them that perish. Because the deception that he told the American people was that he was going into Iraq to take them down for weapons of mass destruction, because what he told the American people that Saddam Hussein plans on attacking the American citizens with the weapons of mass destruction. So it says, and with all deceivableness of unrighteousness in them that perish, because they receive not the love of the truth, that they might be saved. And there's no hope for salvation for these devils. There's no hope for salvation of these devils. He was destroyed from the beginning, man. But that brings a conclusion to the lesson. Esau oppresses a man, his house, and heritage. The Saddam Hussein edition. So Lord willing, this was edifying unto the elect. Death and destruction is falling upon Edom. We're in exciting times to where this devil is coming out of power. All we got to do is remain vigilant, diligent, and wait, upon the coming of our Lord, and suffer patiently. Because this devil's going down, man, and Trump is making things happen, through the spirit, So we almost home, man. So stay strong in the faith, continue to push out the work, further glorify the name of YAHAWASHI and exhort the brotherhood. So with that, I'd like to give all praises, glory, and honors to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahawashi, double honors to the apostles and the elders at Great Millstone who rule well, and peace, salutations, and blessings to the elect across the four corners of the earth who firmly believe on Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahawashi. Shalom.